Hello and welcome. On Storyboard today, we're going to be talking to Senior Vice President and Chief Business Officer of Google, Nikesh Arora. We're going to find out the latest trends in the digital space, Google's new initiatives, and of course, the contentious issue of content regulation on the internet. All that is up for discussion. Please welcome Nikesh Arora. Nikesh, good to talk to you again. I think we meet on the back of your first quarter numbers.
I think so. Yes, we do.
Yeah, and it's incredible, 24% up year on year this quarter over the last quarter. You closed 2011 with near about $40 billion of revenues. When you look at these numbers, what should people like us understand of A, the trends in this space, and B, the challenges?
I think it's fair to say that our revenues and our advertising dollars are following consumer behavior. You know, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, we were all spending time on our desktops. As technology has evolved, as people have started spending more time on mobile phones, on tablets, you're seeing that usage rise, that you're seeing advertising dollars shift there. Generally around the world, with the availability of broadband, not so much in India, you are seeing tremendous amounts of online video consumption and advertising dollars following that. And I think what you're seeing is advertising trends are, you know, which used to be very text-oriented or search-oriented in the past, are turning into more rich media or display-oriented and video on the web, and mobile is becoming a big sort of relevant part of that equation. So that's sort of what's happening in the consumer space, and the advertising dollars are following, and I think, you know, it's still early days.
When you talk about display ad dollars and you look at the kind of new mechanisms that YouTube, for instance, is offering. So, for instance, we are hearing a lot about TrueView.
Indeed.
And May we'll see you all do a first upfront. Tell us how that happens.
On YouTube, we have an ad format where on TV, when I watch an ad, the advertiser doesn't know if I watched it. The advertiser doesn't know if I wanted to watch it. On YouTube, what we do is there's a format called TrueView, which is skippable ads. It says, if I want, I can skip the ad. Now, we don't charge the advertiser if somebody skips the ad. That's a very different way of presenting advertising, which means, A, the advertising better be interesting, otherwise I don't want to watch it. And B, if I've already seen it, I don't want to watch it again. So you're actually getting a true measure of whether the advertiser is getting an effective return. So I think that's one very interesting phenomenon. In New York, we're doing our first YouTube upfront. For time immemorial, at least as long as television has been around, people have sold advertising by showing the shows in New York or LA, saying, here's what my slate is for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months, and dear advertiser, do you want to sponsor this? So we're doing the same thing on YouTube. We have now channels on YouTube which we are presenting. I think there's about 1,000 people signed up to watch what we are going to be showcasing in the next 6 to 12 months, and people are actually bidding for advertising against those channels. So this is the first time online video is behaving like television packaging from an advertising point of view. And I think it's going to go down in history as a seminal event where, for the first time, advertisers were behaving similarly.
How's mobile advertising doing? Because that is supposed to be the big future of the digital space, isn't it?
Oh, no, I think we're in the very early days of mobile advertising. I mean, in fact, I think mobile advertising is where online advertising was in the first 3-4 years of its existence, which is, you know, companies are still getting the hang of why they need a mobile experience. Their websites work beautifully, their mobile sites don't, because they're not optimized to that screen. Right? So people are working on optimizing the experience for the user on smaller screens. And as that begins to happen, we'll continue to see sort of a continued momentum, if you will, of advertisers wanting to address users on that small screen. So we are seeing early adoption around the world, particularly strong in Japan, strong in the UK, strong in the US, because those markets have reasonably high bandwidth. They have lots of smartphones with their iPhones or Android phones. A lot of businesses are interested in the users. A lot of apps exist. So there's a bit of an ecosystem built in those countries. That ecosystem is transferring around the world depending on adoption of smartphones and tablets. And that's driving advertisers to want to be there.
What about the India experience where mobile is concerned? Because 3G was supposed to unlock that whole world, isn't it, for everybody, for consumers, for telecom operators?
And I think it's going to happen. I think it is happening, it is happening in India as well. People are using smartphones. You can see them around you. People are using tablets to some degree. I think that just needs to get accelerated, and hopefully a combination of some measures around spectrum, combination of some measures around more build out from operators, and combination of some sort of certainty with tremendous end user enthusiasm, we're going to get there.
Given the telecom industry and the sheer complex crisis it is in currently, and that's an understatement. But given that, do you think that it has sort of held back the burst of optimal 3G services and therefore advertising on the mobile?
Advertising is a consequence that happens if there is tremendous amounts of usage. So from a Google point of view, we don't worry about advertising. We think it will evolve. We're more excited about the end user experience because we've always focused on creating phenomenal end user products. If they work, advertising follows. That's sort of a bit of a sort of happens.
Yeah.
So yes, I'd like to see much more ability for users in the country to use their services they're so used to on their desktop, on their mobile devices, and that does require some amount of acceleration in the development of infrastructure. So I'm hoping that'll happen.
Would the roadblocks today be because of the regulatory framework and what is happening around that, or would it be because nobody's making money, or everybody's making less money than they used to?
I think if you think about infrastructure businesses, whether they're roads, their electricity, their mobile infrastructure businesses require long-term investment. They require a certain amount of time where people can generate returns. So I think the best thing that can happen for any industry, which is an infrastructure business, is certainty. Certainty in regulatory matters, certainty in matters where companies know, okay, I understand the rules, and if I play by those rules, I'll invest and I'll make money in the long term. And I think if some element of uncertainty exists, people stop spending. By the way, that's not restricted to mobiles. Any part of the world, you see economic crisis, companies hold back, they stop spending on advertising. So I think what is important for continued sustained development, where we know there's natural demand, is certainty. So if there can be more certainty injected into the environment, as specifically the telecom sector is concerned, I think you're going to see a sustained development of infrastructure and sustained momentum of users. So, that's my answer.
So a little more than half your revenues today come from outside the US. So that's the rest of the world. Does India even figure?
Of course India figures.
Yeah, but I mean, does it figure as a negligible little drop in terms of what the Indian market is?
Look, every dollar of revenue which is profitable is a good dollar of revenue. So we'll take them as they come. Is it proportionate to the potential? No. I think there is tremendous more potential in the market than that we're seeing revenues. But again, as I said, in the long term, we believe this is going to be a market which is going to be very vibrant. It's going to be, it's a very technology savvy market. There's a huge youth population which is adopting online services. So we think the long-term prognosis for the country is phenomenal.
But has it been slower than you expected?
As I keep saying, it can be faster. Are we setting expectations and feeling disappointed or not? We're not. We're just going with the flow and seeing as development happens. It is going. We're going to get the revenues that come with it. But for us, what is more important is the development of a robust ecosystem, robust set of services, robust set of products for the end users, because that's going to generate revenue in the long term. We're not worried about that.
Both globally and in India, very concertedly in the last couple of years, Google is investing in creating relationships with the advertising community, with media buying agencies. What is the India team telling you about how prepared or how skilled Indian agencies are when it comes to creating digital advertising and understanding the medium? Because I was reading in Ad Age, I think, that in the US, 30% of agency revenues have come in from digital media this year.
Again, I think the agency preparedness mirrors the development of the ecosystem in the market. India has a very vibrant advertising market, and it's very small numbers from a digital point of view still. So agencies are putting in commensurate effort. But we are seeing interest. We are seeing a lot more agencies getting equipped for the digital age, because they not only want to serve the Indian market, but they also want to be able to serve a global market where they're partners with other agencies and other creative businesses around the world. So the creativity is there, the appetite is there, the savviness is there. Some people are more prepared than the others.
But the sense I get when I talk to people is that there is a lot of talk about digital, but the money is not going there. It's just not going there. But everyone's talking about it, and the question to
That's
you
a good
is,
thing,
yeah,
If these conversation.
yeah, but the question to you then is, what is holding that money back? Is it, what is it?
I think the money is being held back because of inventory or demand, right? A lot of users have to spend a lot more time on the web, in the digital space. You have to understand, there's no creativity in search advertising.
Yeah.
To the extent it's text. But the real creative agencies get very excited when video comes into play. And we're seeing that in the New York upfronts, we're seeing that in the US, we're seeing that in different parts of Europe. And various parts of Asia as well. So you will see that happen in India as well. There is enthusiasm.
How long before you do an upfront in India?
I hope soon.
2 years? What is soon?
I don't know. I think it depends. Honestly, it depends on the infrastructure. It depends on consumer demand. We could probably do it. I think next 2 to 3 years are probably a safe bet.
Big news last year where Google was concerned with the acquisition of Motorola. What can you tell us about what that business is going to do with Google? Is the integration complete?
Well, first of all, it's not closed yet, so we don't own Motorola yet. So it's very hard to integrate something that you don't own. So we've been spending time understanding the business, but we're waiting for regulatory clearances from around the world so that we can work with them. Look, fundamentally, I personally always like businesses where there is natural demand. And there is going to be a natural demand for more and more mobile devices. So at least there's going to be huge demand in the future. And then it boils down to how the company can execute against that demand. And we're hoping the team there and some of our people who are working really hard to understand it will do a good job. But it's hard to comment right now.
Will you be involved?
We're always involved. I work for Google.
What about Google Plus? Because I think that seems to be, we keep coming back to Google and all its various achievements and all its growth, but that social networking with Google Plus, that it sort of cracked last year when it launched. I believe now you're close to 90 million users.
It's more than 100.
It would be more than 100 because I think 90 million as of December 2011. But is it, again, optimal for you guys? Well, what are we talking about where Facebook is concerned? 850?
Yeah, look, I think what's fascinating is that if you look at our history, and I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe it's journalists keeping us on our toes and making sure we're honest, but every time we do something, until it becomes something substantive, people always question us. Android, I remember us having a conversation a few years ago and saying, hey Nikesh, what's going on with Android? Is it optimal? Should you guys be in the mobile operating systems business? Well, it seems to have worked, and thank God for Android, because now it seems like...
No, we can't ask that question anymore.
Yeah, you can't, exactly. So now you want to ask the next question, right? So we hope Google Plus is going to work, but I think what is important to understand is a fundamental shift is going on in the way the internet operates. Larry said something very interesting in our recent earnings call, and he actually distinguished the social world into sort of social networking, or a social destination, and a social spine. So one incarnation of Google Plus is a social destination where I can go do whatever I do in a social network. But the second, which is more relevant, at least from my point of view, is that it becomes the spine of the future development. So that's in the future, you're going to design things which are around a social experience. So it's early days, but we're very excited about where we've gotten so far, and it's been less than a year.
Yeah.
So I think it's taken a lot longer for existing social destinations or networks to establish themselves. So I think we're headed in the right direction.
But the fact that you were not the first mover here, is that because you have to wean people away from existing social networks and either have an additional one,
We've been playing this game for a while. I mean,
but
do you remember? Majority of the cases, the first movers get innovated away. We were not the first mover in search. We never were. We're not the first mover in online video. We were not the first mover in email. We were not the first browser in the world. If somebody is the first mover in a certain industry, it's hard for us to be the first mover now.
Yeah.
The question is, can we out-innovate that mover? Can we come up with something that's even more useful, that creates a compelling reason for users to do it differently? That's the question. But as I said, it's early days. It still remains to be seen. But we're very pleased with the early signs that over 100 million people have joined it. They're beginning to get utility out of it. They're beginning to enjoy it. And hopefully that creates a bit of a momentum and creates a bit of a viral notion that everybody else needs to get on it. So you better get on it.
How would you react if I said that while Google is a lot bigger and more comprehensive in terms of the services it offers and how it touches its consumers, Facebook has captured mind space in the past couple of years, whether it's the movie or the mystique around Mark Zuckerberg or the fact that their IPOs are going to be out this year. Would you agree that for a company which is not competing with you at all the various different things you do, that it's capturing share of mind a lot more?
Yeah, look, I think there will always be another company, another set of innovators, another set of amount of innovation that's going to capture the fancy of us as users, right? We all like change, we all like different things at different points in time. But that's not where we spend our time focusing, right? Our focus is, can we keep users excited about our products? Because the biggest failure can be if users don't see value in your product and they leave. So we are seeing from all of our products and all of our usage that users are happy with a lot of the products we have to offer. And then on the back of it, to keep the innovation engine alive, you have to make sure you're generating tremendous amounts of capability for investment. So our business side of things is doing really well.
Yeah.
I mean, we did, I'd say, upwards of $8 billion of incremental revenue last year. That's still larger than what many of the names you're thinking of are going to do. So we're still generating more money.
No, I accept
So from that perspective,
yeah.
Yes, are we concerned that there are other things that are out in the market? Yes, we are, but we're not thinking about it from a competitive position. We're thinking about it, how can we keep creating great products so we can keep users with us and keep their belief in Google as an innovation business, as something that if we come out with a product, you should try it because it's probably cool and solves the problem.
Let's shift from what's happening at Google to what's happening outside Google, and that is the intense efforts to regulate the online world, whether it's in the USA, whether it's conversations here in India. Look, this is a new medium, it's breaking the rules,
Totally,
so
right.
there will be a huge amount of fluidity for some time till we get equilibrium. But how are you guys coping? Because I've been reading about how big your budgets are for lobbyists and stuff like that. Because clearly this is an area of concern. We saw what happened with Sopa Pipa, which seems to have got postponed indefinitely and is out of the picture. But there is CISPA, which a company like yours is supporting. What are the conversations around regulation of the internet?
I like the way you characterize it, and what you have articulated is the challenge. The challenge is that we are moving into a connected world, where I wouldn't say the rules are being broken, but it is creating new platforms and new conversations much faster, right? It's sort of like things just happen much faster. Just the dissemination of information has become so much faster that it changes the entire social contract. So that's the more fundamental shift we're dealing with generally as society.
Yeah.
And regulation over time has been designed to create a level playing field, create equality, create a whole bunch of good things for society. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to see how the old model of regulation applies to this new world. And I think therein fundamentally lies a bit of a challenge. Maybe that some of the old models are not going to apply in the future to the new world because it's hard to implement the old model in the new world. Maybe the new world has a new model. And I think that kind of thinking is happening in different parts of the world. Some people are coming up with more innovative ways of dealing with these issues. Some people are relying on trying to apply old models towards the new issues. So, I don't
think there has been attempts to regulate the internet as strongly and as consistently before than it is right now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, look, for the primary reason that it's becoming more and more mainstream, right? It's like 5 years ago, there was 10% of the population using the internet and online. Today, there is 80% in some countries and all businesses. I think it's a bit of a myth that any new rules that get defined for the new way society behaves. And I'm actually staying away from the notion of the internet because this doesn't impact the internet only. It impacts you and me as individuals, and it impacts businesses, right? Because now all businesses are present on the internet. So any rule that applies for the internet businesses applies to traditional businesses.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm saying, a bit of a deep think has to be conducted on what is important for the new world to survive and what are the new rules. And I think these are hard problems. These are not easy problems. And you asked me about the investment and the people we're trying to hire. I think we're trying to put the people in place around the world to be able to have these conversations and participate in this rethink in constructive ways. Now, we understand the role governments play, we understand the role regulators play, and it's a very hard job and it's a respectful job because they're trying to do the right thing for society. But it's just an interpretation of what's the right thing and how do you arrive at that conclusion, because it's easy to get some things wrong if you don't understand the complexity of the new world and the unintended consequences of what you might unleash if you focus on one part versus the other. And I think that's the challenge.
But do you think that you all are being invited to the conversation effectively enough, or is it that you all are the villains that need to be countered and checked?
No, the invitations come in various shapes and forms. Some come in conceptualization phases, some come as a court order, but yeah, we do get invited one way or the other to the conversation.
How is India dealing with regulating content online? Because, you know, in December, Minister Kapil Sibal created a furor when he went and met all your companies like yours and said, you know, take off objectionable content and filter it and all of that. There was a court case which, you know, last month, you know, Google India is now not party to that case, but Google Worldwide is. So how do you think India is, or where is India at in its attempts to understand and create a regulatory framework that suits the internet?
Well, I think, as I said, it's a tough problem. And I can't comment specifically on the court case. I think that's for my local counterparts to talk about because they're involved in it. But I think, as I said earlier,
but the thing is that it's now not your local counterparts. They're out of the picture, isn't it? So it's you guys who've got to answer.
Right, and you know, as I said, we do get invited to the conversation, and we are having conversations. That, you know, my intent is not to offend anyone, but as I said, it is a hard problem to solve. It is important to get it right, but it is important to get it right in the context of how the new world behaves.
How do you think India is dealing with it compared to other countries that you've seen?
I think India is in a different point in the evolution of the internet. I think, as you've talked about earlier, we're still seeing people just get onto their phones and start interacting with the web more so. Not as much of the population is online. So I think we're going to the parts of the early phases where some other countries have been through the early phase. And these are tough problems to solve. So I think people are trying to pay attention. And my only hope is that enough time and effort will be spent in thinking through the consequences, both intended and unintended, as these conversations happen. And things need to be weighed carefully before we make decisions. Because, as I said, it's easy to get some things wrong. And equally so, some things can be gotten right quickly as well. You know, India has a long history of conversation. It has a long history of being on the side of the citizen, the end user, and has a long history of tremendous amounts of growth. So we just have to make sure we get it right.
Well, Nikesh Arora, we look forward to your next visit. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.